Hello and welcome to this XK8 Bible video, Crank but No Start. This is video GV31 in my series of XK8 Bibles video, and in this video I'm going to go through section 31 in Gary VanRemortel's XK8 Bible, which is entitled Crank No Start Checklist. If you're not aware, I've been doing some videos around Gary VanRemortel's XK8 Bible. The XK8 Bible is actually a PDF document which is composed of lots of things Gary's learned from his 10-year plus ownership of his 2003 Post car, and he shared that via the website www.tothegarage.co.uk. So if you want to find a copy of it, just pop to John Dee's website. If you want to be introduced briefly to the contents, I've done a video of that. If you're interested to see roughly what it's overall all about, and that's video GV0. There should be a link in the top right hand corner. The Bible then is composed of 32 sections, and in this video we're going to concentrate on section 31, Crank but No Start Checklist, which can happen to your XK8. So this is things particularly to check for if your car is the starter is cranking but it's not firing up and the engine starting. This is it roughly. This is an abstract from the XK8 Bible. It's based on 7 points to look for. There's a bit of a simple stuff to check at the beginning and some notes at the end. So I'm going to actually break this down into those sections. Simple stuff: fuses, inertia switch, crank and cam sensors, fuel supply, engine control module, ignition and spark, OB2 a scan, and notes. Obviously most people tell you with engines it's air, fuel, it's basically oil and spark. Air, fuel and spark is all you got to worry about, but these are the particular things that do go wrong with the XK8 and stop it from starting. If you're watching this video, you're probably interested in Jaguar XK8s or Jaguar XKRs, X100s. If you are, mind to suggest you subscribe to my channel by pressing the rectangular red subscribe button with subscribe written on it, clicking the bell to be reminded when videos are aired, and click the thumbs up if you like the video or thumbs down if you don't. And if you have any questions or comments, and please ask them in the comment section below the video. Okay, so in Gary's XK8 Bible there's a few things to note at the beginning of the checklist. These are more things to be aware of. So first of all, this is written around his 2000 year onwards model year car, so it's a 4.2 litre, but a lot of these are relevant to earlier cars, as I said before. So first of all, reading from the Bible, it is assumed all wiring and hoses are intact and functional. In other words, your car is complete and hasn't had an accident or bits fallen off or whatever. So it's the first thing to check. A couple of things about the starter not engaging at all then. The starter will not engage if the security immobilizer has tripped due to tampering, etc., and you have a blinking panel security lamp. You can, however, reset it with the fob. That will reset the alarm and the immobilizer, or if you haven't got your fob, you can reset it by inserting the key in the driver's door and unlocking the car. That also disables the immobilizer. The starter will not engage also if the shifter is in any other selection except park and neutral. So the car will only start in park or in neutral. Bit of a tip then: if you're having trouble with your selector and it won't start in park, try in neutral, because that is another option to starting. The starter will not engage also if the battery is defective or incorrectly connected. A bit obvious, but ensure the red cable on the battery positive is connected to the battery positive post, and the black cable or braided strap from the chassis ground is connected to the negative post, and they are tight and corrosion free. Simple stuff, but you'll be surprised what people miss. Finally, with the simple stuff, check for voltage at the engine bay. So it's all well and good having a good battery in the back, but possibly it's not getting through to the engine. So check you got 12.5 volts at the engine bay with a multimeter from the positive point of the fuse box and nearest ground. I've used one of the strut top bolts. If it isn't 12.5 or thereabouts, you need to recharge or replace the weak battery or start examining your earthing straps. Okay, now we get on to the real crux of it, so crank and North Star items. First of all, fuses. I have done a video on fuses, video 10. There should be a link in the top right hand corner here. The fuse positions do vary from vehicle model year to model year, but if you look at your documents you should be able to clarify which one you're looking for. So first of all, check the ECM fuse, or the engine management engine control unit. That's the engine bulkhead fuse box, and it is that 10 amp fuse there. It's basically the number 5 10 amp fuse. Now again, double check that it is the right fuse for your model. I know on a couple of the models there are actually 2 5 amp fuses. Now this fuse position was based on my 1996 car. Just another point, the actual fuses in this fuse box are numbered from the bottom up, left bottom upwards. So you got from the bottom left, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you got your 10 amp. It's a little bit confusing because they're all slightly different. Then you need to check the fuel pump fuse. That's in the luggage compartment. I think this has a fairly standard position for most cars, but again, please double check that it's the right place. It's that one there, 20 amps. So it's fuse number 7, 20 amps in my 1996 car. Again, double check your fuse, your fuse chart, but chances are that is the right one. Now, just to confuse you, in the case of this fuse box, the fuses are labelled from the top down, and that's fuse 7 counting from the right hand side down. Section 2 then, the inertia switch. You need to verify the inertia switch is not tripped, inhibiting power to the fuel pump due to impact. So it's a safety device, so in the event of an accident this device will cut off the fuel power to the fuel pump to stop you fuel leaking everywhere. So there you go, that's the position in a 1996 car. I think it changed in 2003 to being inside the footwell, just behind the bonnet catch, and you can see it in this diagram here. So any 4.2 litre cars it's there, otherwise it's in the passenger side fuse box. There is a procedure for resetting it. It's not just pressing it down. According to Jaguar's procedure, you need to turn the ignition to position 0, press down the flexible cover on the top of the inertia switch, turn the ignition switch to position 2, pause for a few seconds, and then return position 0. Then you can make any further checks for fuel leaks. Hopefully you haven't had any, it's just been the inertia switch going a little bit faulty. It can become intermittent if the contacts have become corroded or damaged. In other words, if you've got a bit of water in that area of the vehicle. Section 3 then, crank position and cam position sensors. If you crank the starter briefly, the tacho needle should move. It's not, I haven't shown it moving here, but it should move. That will it will register RPM, and the mill light, the engine light, should go out. If neither of these occur, these sensors may be defective, because obviously even though the engine hasn't started, the cam position and crank position sensors will be registering to give you an RPM reading. The loss of either sensor type will disable fuel and ignition by default. If you're interested, the location of the crank position sensor is behind the front wheels. It's on the front of the bell housing connecting the gearbox to the engine. It's just there. It's very easy to get at once you get underneath the vehicle. The cam position sensors are a completely different animal. They're located on the inlet cam, nearest the bulkhead, at the bulkhead end near the throttle, and the right on the end of the engine, beneath the engine cover and various bits of pieces. So I couldn't get them out to show you in this video because it was a bit too complicated, but that's where they're located. For your interest, AJ26s only have a cam sensor on the left-hand side bank, and it has slightly different lobes that it's looking for. AJ27 onwards has actually camshaft sensors on both left-hand and right-hand bank at the end of the inlet cam. Section 4, fuel supply. So basically you need to check you've got the right fuel in the tank and the gauge is reading correctly. But after that you need to locate the Schrader valve on the injector rail. So if you take the cover off, this is AJ26 again. It's located close to the tower end at the left hand side of the manifold. That's that blue little sort of bicycle or Schrader valve cover. That's like, it's on the left hand bank at the front of the engine on AJ26. When I looked at the JagRepair.com for his method of testing the fuel pressure, I found that on other cars, AJ27 and onwards, I think it's because of the air assistance, it's got a slightly different manifold, and the pressure test point is actually diagonally opposite and is on the right hand side of the manifold close to the throttle body, as you can see here. So if you want to test you've got pressure, you need to remove the cap, place a shop towel under the valve and use a screwdriver blade or key to press the centre pin in, releasing the fuel pressure. Whatever you do, make sure the engine's cold. Assumingly it is cold, but you don't want fuel dripping down onto a hot manifold or anything. You need to turn the ignition key on briefly while listening for the fuel pump to prime the injector rail. If you get no sound, the fuel pump control module or fuse may be faulty. If a sound was heard, attach the gauge to the test port and read the test pressure greater than 40 psi. So this is the method that Gus has written in JagRepair.com. It's a very good old website. It's one thing of note that these cars have been around 20 years and there's people written about these from all that time. I mean, this is a website, JagRepair.com, that I don't think it's had any recent any recent content, but a lot of the stuff on there is still relevant. Okay. If the pump ran but did not pressurize the fuel rail, the pump may be faulty, fuel filter may be blocked, or the fuel pressure sensor may be faulty. To confirm a fuel problem, crank the engine while directing propane into the intake. Basically, if you spray Easy Start into your intake, the engine should start just with that as the fuel, so you can discount that it is Spark or any other variant. So it's an easy way of checking that fuel isn't the problem. Section 5, ECM, Engine Control Module. So if you turn the ignition on briefly, the engine light should illuminate, confirming power to the ECM. Also, faulty engine coolant temperature sensor could erroneously indicate over temperature where none truly exists, and that's where it's located. It's on the right hand side bank underneath the engine cover, but it seldomly prevents engine start. If the ECM doesn't power up and you don't get that light, it may be defective. Section 6N, ignition or spark. I've posted a couple of videos about checking the spark plugs both on the left hand side bank and the right hand side bank, video 20 and 23. So what does Gary say? Test for spark on all cylinders during cranking using a spark plug tester or similar to avoid electric shock. Don't be silly, do it carefully. You can need to check the spark plug gaps, but if all fail, the problem is probably something upstream. Basically, if you've got no spark on any of your spark plugs, it's quite common to have one or two spark plugs, or the coil packs go bad. But if they're all bad, chances are it's something upstream like the ECM, which is really bad news because they're very expensive, they've got to be coded to the vehicle, etc. Section 7, ODB2 scan, or Onboard Diagnostic Protocol 2 scanner, which some people may do this first, but in Gary's list it's last, because it's really the more complicated thing to address after all the easy stuff's been through. So if you connect the scan tool to the data link connector near the driver's knee bolster and turn the ignition on, if the scan tool cannot link, either the battery positive to the DLC is not present, or the engine control monitor is defective. You can check, again, double check your fuse position. On my car, the OB2 scanner fuse was fuse number 6, 5 amps, and this time the numbered downwards, from the top down. It's not always the same fuse position in every car, so please check your chart. Okay, the battery positive should be present on pins 9 and 16 with ignition on. That's on the OBD2 reader. Once you do get the scanner working, scan for the error codes and take the appropriate action per code. It's probably the more difficult stuff now to resolve. Obviously, if you cannot link the OBD2 scanner and the fuses are okay and everything, again, your ECM is possibly defective, and it's more bad news because that is obviously it's linked to the Immobilizer and the key, which has the transponder in. So hence the picture here shows the ECM itself. You've got the ring which goes across your lock barrel on the ignition. You obviously need new lock barrels for the driver's door, the ignition, and the boot. So it's a complicated fix if your ECM does go bad, and you need to make sure you have the right ECM for the right model year, which you can find in your CATS label. Finally, section 8, the general notes. Things to bear in mind. Cranking the starter with the accelerator pedal to the floor will clear a flooded engine by cutting off the fuel injection. However, don't think that putting your foot to the floor will actually help pump fuel in. It's actually going to stop it. It actually does the opposite. So it's something to do when you have flooded your engine, not to do it when you're trying to start it and you've got lack of fuel. Pull the connector of the EGR valve if you're unlucky to have one, and tap it lightly to ensure it is closed at idle. Internal damage or corrosion can affect valve opening and closing, but this can only be assessed by removal of the EGR, which is blinking awkward, I assume. Non-functional injection results from clogged faulty injector or not receiving firing pulses from the ECM. So basically, if you're not getting fuel injection, you've got a clogged injector, or you're not getting the firing pulses to your coil packs. Leaking intakes, faulty injectors, and or MAP sensors can cause difficult starts, but rarely no starts. So it's a bit like we said before, if you have one or two spark plugs or coil packs that aren't working, it won't generally stop the car starting altogether. You'll probably get lumpy idle or some other symptom. So there you go. Some things to look at if your car all of a sudden is cranking the starter and it won't start. Thank you very much for Gary for compiling that list. It is XK8 Bible. I'm going to do some more videos about different sections of the Bible, so please look out for more installments of the XK8 Bible. If you're interested to find out where it is and read it directly, I'll show you. So first of all, in order to find the Bible, you need to go on to John Dee's To The Garage website. So you just type in To The Garage, not as we say up north, To The Garage, all one word, and you'll come up with John's website. Go all To The Garage home, that's it. And John has kindly hosted the Bible here. If you go to the tab here, Bible and other useful documents, and basically click on the latest update. And that's the easiest and best way to get a copy of the Bible. You can download it, but I suggest you don't, because this way you get the latest version every time. So there you go, that's how you find it. Okay, there you go. I hope you find that useful. Obviously, I never used the checklist on my own car. All cars are different, so it's purely some ideas as things to look for. It's not prescriptive, and it's only just a guide. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe if you'd like to see more XK8 videos.